and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! It's a special pre-Comic-Con episode. It's probably going to be dropping during one of the days of Comic-Con, either Thursday or Friday. We're recording this on a Wednesday as Comic-Con soft opens tonight, Shannon, that you can walk through the convention center tonight, starting, I think, at 6 p.m. PT. You will be heading down on Friday. Michael Vogel not joining us today because he's in a call with Michael Kalinowski, so he couldn't make it for our recording here. But we thought we'd do a little fun conversation about some of the stuff that happened this week. I just want to get into it, man. I don't want to wait anymore. That's Shannon McClung. I'm John Rocha. Let's get into it. Shannon, we are on the precipice of Marvel. Marvel about to do two panels, and they are two separate panels. Of course, they're going to do other panels for smaller stuff, but Deadpool and Wolverine is going. The Celebration of Life panel is happening, I think, on Thursday or Friday, and then Thursday, and then you have the 6 to 7:30 p.m. massive panel for Hall H on Saturday. And we're seeing Kevin Feige now coming out doing all these interviews over the last few days in preparation for Deadpool and Wolverine. And I guess I kind of want to do this, a Marvel edition of For those of you who are new to the show, that's a rapid fire, and that just means I'm going to toss out subjects to Shannon McClung in the Marvel world to hear what he's got to say about stuff. We're also going to get into trailers. We're also going to get into a main topic about what we're going to expect or want to see from Comic-Con down the road here on the show. But let's get into the Marvel side of things. Kevin Feige, as I said, doing a number of interviews here recently, Shannon McClung. So I need to hear your thoughts on this. John Watts, it seems like, not coming back. It's from Kevin would say, basically intimating and officially saying that John Watts is not coming back to direct Spider-Man 4. There are rumors of Justin Lin. There are rumors of Bilal Abdal and Bilali from the recent Bad Boys film. There are rumors of a number of directors here possibly being in consideration. What are your thoughts when you hear Kevin Feige say that John Watts is not coming back to direct Spider-Man 4? And do you think we hear something at Comic-Con?
I mean, it's a shame that John Watts isn't coming back. And I feel like when you look at that MCU Spider-Man trilogy, there are a lot of names that are associated with its success.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal being the big ones because, they were able to cut through sort of the legal red tape and work out a deal where the MCU could use Spider-Man and Kevin Feige would kind of help out when they were doing, Sony was doing their films. How much he actually helped, I don't know. I mean, if you watched Morbius, it seems like maybe he didn't. Maybe they were like, hey, what do you think about this? And he said, sure. But also Tom Holland, Zendaya, the fantastic villains that we got, the fact that they brought back the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield for the third one. The villains from the two original sets of films, but a name we don't hear enough, I think, is John Watts. And I think John Watts does deserve a good share of credit because when the Amazing Spider-Man 2 underperformed and they're like, all right, we're going to do this again, but this time it's going to be with the MCU. There were a lot of people saying like, hey, what is going to be different about this one? Like, we have kind of seen this twice already.
Yeah.
And I feel like the energy that John Watts injected into this sort of third go at Peter Parker really worked. I mean, I think most people, like obviously older fans, we are going to have an affection for the Spider-Man who we first encountered. Like, for us, it was going to be Tobey Maguire. For some younger folks, it's going to be Andrew Garfield. For a lot of people, it's Tom Holland. I mean, Tom Holland is going to be forever associated with this role. I know we're not doing the traditional rapid fire because I know I'm out of my 60 seconds.
Yeah. No, but we got to keep it. I saw you're right. That's a good call me on it. So who do you see possibly coming in as a director? That's the next part of this 60-second conversation here, because there are a number of directors who are being kicked around discussed, shall we say, who, like, as I said, Al-Arabi and Bilal possibly showing interest here. Who do you see possibly stepping in? Who would you like to see be a part of this as a director of it all?
For me, it's 100% Adil and Bilal.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
All right.
You looked at what they did with Miss Marvel. Like, was the series perfect? No. But I think the effect that they had on it, they just bring an energy to everything that they film. And
Okay.
I think that in the two Bad Boy films that they directed are no exception. I mean, just the way that they shoot action, it's so interesting. And I think they are absolutely the team to continue Peter Parker's journey in the MCU.
Okay. All right. I like that. I like that proposal as a possibility. The other side of this thing, Kevin Feige also has talked about Blade, and he's given a little bit of he said he's thinking they're still not, they still haven't quite cracked this thing. He's saying, I think that's right. I mean, for the last 2 years, as we've been trying to crack that movie, the most important thing for us is not rushing it and making sure we are making the right Blade movie, because there were some great Blade movies from years ago. They were all rated R. I think that's like Deadpool, inherent within the character of Blade. Yeah, this may blow our minds as Comic-Con veterans, but it was 5 years ago that Mahershala Ali was introduced as Blade at that Comic-Con, and we still have not seen one day of shooting on this. So what are your thoughts when you hear him say this? Do you anticipate that he's saying this in these interviews now because he's essentially going to announce a new director at Comic-Con?
Maybe there could be a new director. I mean, the last I checked, the Marvel panel is an hour on Saturday. Now, maybe they've changed that. But when you look at an hour panel, you look at how much they are going to talk about.
Yeah.
There are a few projects that are coming out, some at the end of this year, some next year. Will it be a big announcement fest? I don't know. Blade is still on the calendar.
Yeah.
Next year.
Blade's still on the calendar.
So, I mean, it's certainly possible. I mean, in terms of him saying like they want to get it right, I mean, it's kind of like, what else can he say right now? I mean,
good point.
5 years ago, like they gotta say something.
Yeah.
So I hope it gets announced. But yeah, in terms of like the reasoning, like, yeah, this is a trickier character to tackle if you want to honor what came before it, which are those R-rated roots. If they want to make an R-rated Blade movie, I think they kind of want to see how Deadpool does, because this is the first R-rated MCU film. But also, I think they also want to do it right. Now, as Vogel has put many times before, they're kind of running out of goodwill on the clock.
Yeah.
So my hope is that we hear something and that we get to see it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, there was also Kevin Feige saying that he's maybe closing the door on the multiverse saga and opening the door to the mutant saga. What do you think about that? Does that excite you when you hear that, or do you get a little trepidatious because they didn't do that well with the multiverse saga?
Well, depending on how much of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars run they adapt, that is very much a multiverse story. So again, the MCU has a history of taking an established run and adapting it the way that it needs to be adapted for the film universe that they have created.
Right.
I don't know how you do it and not do a multiverse story. I'd be curious, because I know I've heard the quote. I've not read the quote. Like, I'd be very curious, like, what did he say? Because as far as I understood it, phases 1 through 3 were the Infinity Saga, 4 through 6 were going to be the Multiverse Saga, 7 through 9 or 7 through whatever was going to be the Mutant Saga.
Right.
And the conclusion of Secret Wars having mutants kind of be a result of everything that happens, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
But if they are if it is feeling a little long in the tooth and they're feeling the enthusiasm wane, I mean, maybe they would try to exit it early. But again, I don't know how you build a Secret Wars and not make it a multiverse film.
Well, and to be fair, I'm getting this from theplaylist.net. This is their paragraph here. In the second part of his answer, Feige addressed the X-Men finally being allowed into the Marvel Cinematic Universe thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine because of Hugh Jackman, and suggested the Mutant Saga won't necessarily have to wait until the Multiverse Saga ends, which ends with Avengers Secret Wars. Also, the quote after this is a quote, is clearly, now that we have characters from the X-Men world, the mutants we haven't had access to before, so this is the beginning of that. And every movie post Deadpool and Wolverine will be the mutant era coming into the MCU. So that's his exact quote there, Shannon. So reaction to that.
I mean, it sounds like they're going to overlap, and my guess is that was not the original plan.
Yeah.
But in the wake of some underperforming titles and titles not turning out necessarily the way that they wanted them to, they want to usher something in that they are really hoping is going to work, because the enthusiasm from X-Men 97, the enthusiasm from getting to see Hugh Jackman one more time, and this time putting on like the proper Wolverine attire.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm for the mutants is kind of always there. So I could see them wanting to get that sooner rather than later, even though it doesn't symmetrically line up with, how things work in my brain.
That's a fair point. Now let's move on to Eternals 2. He talked about Eternals 2. He says, there are, and I think you've seen maybe in a trailer we've released recently an acknowledgement of some of those events from Eternals, certain giant things coming out of the ocean. But he said that there are no immediate plans for Eternals 2. So, people like Michael Vogel might be upset about this, but Shannon, does this essentially say that Eternals is over? We're not going to get a sequel to that film.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the Celestial in the ocean, there were like some casual mentions of Eternals characters in the wake of that movie, some in Ms. Marvel. I want to say, was there one in Thor: Love and Thunder? Maybe I'm wrong there. Definitely Ms. Marvel.
Yeah.
Because Kamala Khan talked about Kingo. Those have kind of faded. And when you look at where there are some big dangling threads left from that movie, but the ones that affect the MCU the most is that Celestial in the ocean.
Right.
The Eternals that have been taken by the giant Celestial into space, they're gone. You've got the other Eternals that are with is it Starhawk, Harry Styles,
Star Fox,
Star Fox, excuse me, Star Fox and CGI Patton Oswalt. I thought the movie was fine. I think it did not accomplish what they wanted it to accomplish, and if you can move forward without going back to them, it's kind of like it underperformed, and it does have its defenders out there. And again, we'll never yuck anyone's yum here. But it does. I don't see the benefit right now going back to it. Now, again, there are crack writers out there that could tell me this is why you're wrong, and I would certainly listen to that argument. But right now, I don't see it.
I think if we do see it again, it won't be with Chloe Zhao directing. That's what I think. If we do see an Eternals 2, there could be a chance for it, but I think it'll be a much leaner film in terms of stripping the cast down. And I don't think it'll be a more action-oriented director who will take it over, which might piss off some fans, but not enough fans that it would make a difference that they moved on from Chloe Zhao to direct a sequel here. One last thing in the Marvel side of things, Kevin was speaking with Frosty over there at Collider in one of these interviews to prepare for Deadpool and Wolverine. Talked about the fact we know Werewolf by Night came out. We know Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special, came out in 2022. There has not been a special presentation in 2023 or 2024, but he said, Kevin Feige confirmed there will be more of these special presentations, and you will just have to wait. But when he was asked about whether there would be one released next year, he said no. So it looks like we're probably going to have to wait till 2026, but it's only one. Frosty pressed him to say if there was more than one. He said at the end, there's only one that they're working on right now. So your thoughts on taking so many years between these special presentations? We're not going to get one till 4 years after those two come out in 2022. So are you excited by this? And do you think 4 years is too long to be waiting to putting this out?
No, I think those specials, those are evergreen. I think you can probably put those out whenever. When the MCU first started, we got the Marvel one-shots, which
those were great. Yeah,
I was a big fan of those. I was sorry that they stopped doing them, but ultimately, did it have a huge effect on the MCU going forward? Not really. I mean, it was kind of like a nice pop-in with the character.
Right.
I feel like you could bring out a special in 2 years, and people, if it's good, people are going to be jazzed for it. Now, I'm of the school of thought that I was really into Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
I was not so much into the Guardians holiday special. Like that one just didn't quite land for me in terms of what it could be. I know they had originally talked that's what Nova's introduction was going to be.
Right,
but now they've kind of gone back and said, nope, it's going to be a series. Right. So I'd be very curious if they're going to introduce a character or if this is going to be just a fun pop-in adventure with some folks that we already know.
Yeah. I just like the fact that they're taking their time. This is clearly this is what we can, and we're going to have to start expecting this from Marvel. I think we got caught up in the frenzy and the fury of being locked in the candy store when the security had gone home, right? Now, the next morning, we clearly ate too much candy. It wasn't as good as when you first started eating it. Now you're like, you know what? I'll go to the candy store once a week now. I'm good. You're going to have to now. I think they're training us to wait for these things now in a way that they didn't before. And hopefully that will excite fans and get people ready for these kinds of projects. You know, Kevin also said in these interviews, like, I'm excited that everyone's focusing on one movie. It wasn't what we planned for 2024, but the fact that everybody is focusing on this movie, and I think it's a movie that's fantastic, I kind of love this feeling. So that may be a little, retcon answer, but I do think we have to start tamping our expectations down of having multiple Marvel projects going on at the same time in the same year.
Yeah, expectations are that's an interesting way to put it, because we've heard, like, a lot of times, like with our Acolyte reviews, like, your expectations were too high. I'm like, well, expectations are okay.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the biggest franchises in the history of cinema.
Exactly.
And the budget was highly touted. So when it underdelivers, like, I think the audience has earned the right to have some expectations. Now, in terms of output,
yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. Like, we saw what happened when you got too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
You start to lose interest a little bit. I mean, the reason they ramped up that output is because they were riding high, and also Disney Plus. Now that we've seen what happens when he does get spread too thin, it's like, okay, let's dial it back, and let's focus on telling a really good story and get the audience love back to where it was.
Agreed. Astute words there from Shannon McClung, Geek Buddy Shannon McClung, Esquire. Let's take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll do some trailers here, Shannon. We'll be right back right after this.
Oh man, I wish I'd paid more attention to that trailer so I could hum a song, but because Johnny's a good guy, he's not going to call me out on it like Mikey would.
I didn't. No, let's move on. What do you got for us, man? Which trailer you want to hit for first?
We've got trailer. Just one this week.
What? All right, what do we got?
And it's because it's such a massive trailer to talk about. It was our second look at Joker Folie à Deux. So this is the second entry from Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix. We get the introduction of Brendan Gleeson's character. We get a lot more of Joker and Harley in this one, and we're dipping our toe back into this very specific Gotham City that Todd Phillips created with that first movie. Again, that first movie, award-winning, made $1 billion. We weren't sure if we were going to get a sequel. It sure seemed like it. Like, if you make $1 billion movie, people are clamoring for another one. But when you're dealing with someone like Joaquin Phoenix, it's like, will you be able to bring him back, especially like after he won the Best Actor Oscar? They did, and thus far, based off the marketing, based off that trailer, it looks pretty good. But Johnny, I'll throw it over to you. I know you got thoughts on this. What did you think of our part 2 of Joker Folie à Deux?
Well, this was the official trailer. We'd had the teaser trailer a few weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, I think it was. So I was hoping we get more of the story, and we did. And certainly more of the connection between Harley Quinn, this version of Harley Quinn in this universe. By the way, they came out with the name for this universe. Did you see that? The Batman Crime Saga, I think, is what it's called. Now that's what they're calling all this Elseworld stuff. So it's a weird little name. The Batman Epic Crime Saga, which just got announced. That is going to be the name of it, which I think is a terrible name for it, but that is the name, like, for the Penguin, for the Batman, for Joker. This is essentially what they're saying. So fine. But I liked the trailer. I mean, this got me so hyped for the movie, made it feel like it's awards material all over again, brought me so convincingly back into the world that Todd Phillips created back, I think it's 2018 when that first film came out, or 2019, like, really brought me back into the world of that, and went next level. The Lady Gaga relationship with Joaquin, the chemistry there is palpable on the screen. The exchanges and the looks, it's pretty amazing how quickly Gaga has advanced as an actress with each of these projects. She's not doing small indie films to learn the craft. Like, she's jumping studio to studio to studio picture, big franchise pictures. And so shout out to her for doing that kind of stuff. And I think she's stepping up to the plate. I loved her in Gucci, loved her in Star is Born, and I enjoy what she's doing here. And it seems, Shannon, that she's not a psychiatrist who was sucked into this thing and he turned her into Harley. It seems like she is someone who was inspired by him and what he did in the first movie and maybe got herself put into the same asylum as him in order to get herself closer to him. And the reason I say that is when you see them kiss for the first time, he does not lean down to her. She leans up to him. And that tells me where the power dynamic lies in a subtle way between the two of them. But I don't know what's real and what isn't real. But the costumes are fantastic. Set designs are incredible. The colors are so vibrant here and dark at the same time. Do they really have a talk show? What's this trial going to be like? And from what we get from the beginning, it's 2 years after what happened in the first Joker movie. So I'm so fascinated to see where we're going. And that last shot of him when that song is playing, I forget what the song, oh, Hallelujah, Get Happy, or whatever it is. Judge, get ready for the Judgment Day. That look on his face when Judgment Day comes on the screen, goodness, God almighty, man. So I think we're ready for a hell of a movie, man.
I mean, it looks like awards bait in all kind of the best ways. Like sometimes an awards baity movie can come out and it feels like they're just begging for statues. This one looks like a natural continuation to the story we got the first time, and which is what you want it to be, and adding this layer of the sort of fantasy world that Arthur Fleck lived in the first one. You're taking it and you're blowing it out with the inclusion of someone else who might have those same kind of tendencies to live in those fantasy worlds. It's going to be really, really interesting. And my guess is, there was a lot of anticipation coming up with that first one of like, is this the movie we need right now with a bunch of angry young people out there? I don't feel like that's what we're going to get this time, but again, I could be wrong. But in terms of like what we're looking at on the screen, it looks really, really impressive. And again, Todd Phillips, love him or hate him, I mean, like he had some iffy takes on the state of comedy. But you can't argue with what he did with the first movie, and thus far you can't argue what he looks like he's done again with the second movie.
Yeah, I mean, she's repeating some of the same beats that he did from the first movie. I mean, the whole thing that we saw Joaquin Phoenix do as the Joker in the last movie, she does. We see him run away from a copycat. By the way, I would like to put Joaquin Phoenix's running style in the Hall of Fame next to Tom Cruise's running style, because him running as the Joker is fantastic. You could almost hear the clown shoes slapping onto the ground, even though he's not wearing them. It's such a brilliant, you and I are actors. It's such a brilliant physical embodiment of that without it actually using props to convey it. And I thought that was great. But him confronting that copycat, like, is this, and we see, man, he has started a movement. Is the movement out of control? Does he become a bit of an anti-hero in trying to stop this movement? And is she part of this movement? I'm so fascinated to see what's going to be presented here, because we don't see a Batman or Bruce Wayne or anything that could be an antagonist to his protagonist in this movie. So I wonder if maybe it comes from within, and that Harley starts to eclipse him in her in the part being part of the movement, and he has to now kind of like counter that. So I just have a lot of questions when I look at this stuff. What do you think of all this stuff with the movements and everything?
I mean, it looks like one of the last shots after that crowd shot at the end of the first movie, towards the end of the first movie, where he's the car is flipped over, he's all jacked up, his mouth is bleeding, and he stands amongst these acolytes, if you will, and takes the blood and makes that smile on his face. So the idea that this guy has tapped into something amongst the disenfranchised, again, it's just kind of right ground for storytelling. But I mean, we met Bruce Wayne in the first movie, who is a child. So my guess is in the 2 years he probably hasn't found the cowl and the cape yet.
No.
But I mean, this is kind of the brilliant thing about the movie and what they're showing us in the marketing is we have a sense of what's going on, but we really don't. Like, we know, like, there's a trial, there is a connection, there are musical, most likely fantasy sequences, but where this is going to go, I mean, even with the first one, like, I'm like, I don't know where this where this goes. Like, what's the natural build, and like, how do you conclude this? And I think the conclusion that we did get was awesome, and so I'm hoping that that's what we get again, but we'll see.
Yeah, and maybe this is his way. Like, obviously, he's going to be influenced. Like, people are going to bring up those MGM movie musicals, because certainly some of the shots in this trailer and in the previous teaser trailer mirror stuff we've seen in those, like Singing in the Rain and other MGM musicals, which I'm a massive fan of. Umbrellas of Cherbourg, that kind of stuff. So, but maybe this will move Todd Phillips away from the criticism some people have had from the first movie, that he essentially copied Martin Scorsese's aesthetic or copied Taxi Driver to make this movie. And maybe this is him moving away from that in such an interesting and fascinating way that I hope he nails it, because I'd like this to be like something that we enjoy as comic book movie fans, and a fun new take on the Joker, because we've seen so many different takes in comic book form. So it's nice to see.
And the new take that you bring up, like, I think that's really important, because what we got with that first one, there are elements that are from the comics, but this was Todd Phillips' story. This was his take on a Joker backstory, a Joker origin story. And again, those elements have existed in the comics for years, but it was his specific path. I know for me personally, like, watching the first trailer, I was like, Harley's a therapist. Like, how is this happening? It's like, okay, maybe that's not what is happening. In my headcanon way, when you're, rewriting things, it's like, how do I honor this, but we do this, and how can we do this? And right now I'm having to disconnect my writer brain from this. I'm like, go in and just enjoy it for what it is.
I can't wait to see it. Certainly coming out November 9th, is that when it comes out here, or November 6th?
October 4th.
Wow, so it's really coming close.
The fall is going to be an interesting time, with Agatha and this coming out around the same time.
That's true. That's a good point, brother, for sure. And Beetlejuice coming after that, and then we have other things coming. Any other trailers real quick that you saw before we go to the next section? Anything you want to say? Nope. All right. The Bob Dylan biopic was okay. That's what I'll say. Chalamet might get a nomination, but it didn't have the magic that I would like. A complete unknown. All right, let's take a break, Shan, and on the other side, we'll talk about what we expect to see at Comic-Con right after this. Yeah?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Comic-Con, nothing but Comic-Con. All day it's Comic-Con in San Diego.
All right, so this is a bit of an impromptu show. So, we did tell people to come find, or you did tell people to come find us at Comic-Con, but we are now going to get into like what we expect to see here at Comic-Con. So, Shannon, do you want to take, like, what do you anticipate we're going to get? As I said, we've got the Deadpool and Wolverine panel, we got the Marvel panel. DC does not have a panel necessarily, which I'm kind of surprised by, but maybe they're waiting for Fandom or whatever. But do you anticipate that we're going to see some announcements from DC pop up in certain places? Is Matt Reeves going to do it at a Cape Crusader panel? What do you anticipate we're going to get with the Transformers stuff with Chris Hemsworth there? Is it going to be announced that they're doing a live action one? What do you anticipate we'll be getting here from Comic-Con this year?
So Gunn doesn't have a panel, but DC does have some representation. Okay. One, they are going to be showing, I believe, the first episode of Batman Cape Crusader. That is scheduled, I think, for Friday. Okay. And when you look at like the rooms, like for those of our audience members who have gone to Comic-Con, you start to recognize certain rooms and the size of those rooms.
Yeah.
And I want to say this is in 6B, C, E, F, I believe, which is the big ones are Hall H and Ballroom 20.
Yes.
Now, there are some other sizable ones, but I was kind of surprised that Cape Crusader isn't going to be in Ballroom 20.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that will be the smaller the room, the less people that can get in to see it. And I would have to think that you're debuting a new Batman show, that you are going to want as many people to see it as possible.
Yeah.
Because basically, like what we've seen in the marketing, it seems like they've kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
The Penguin is having a Hall H panel.
Yes.
Which normally big TV stuff tends to go to Ballroom 20. Like that, it is the second largest exhibition hall inside San Diego, the San Diego Convention Center.
Right.
Hall H is about 6,500, 7,000 people. And it's also on Saturday. That's the big day for panels.
Right.
So the fact that they are using this allotted amount of time to only show the Penguin certainly seems like there is a lot of confidence internally from this. And also it's coming around the corner. Like, I want to say it's September as well.
Yeah, September. Yep. I think 19th or 16th. Yeah.
So, outside of Marvel, which obviously, we're all crossing our fingers that we get into the Marvel Hall H panel on Saturday, because that's always just like that's the traditional capper. And on the handful of years that we haven't gotten in, everyone's grumpy on Saturday night.
Yeah.
But on Saturday, before Marvel, like the Penguin being there in such a large exhibition hall, to me, that's a really good sign. And it's a panel that I would really want to see. And also, we've talked before, I think Vogel and I might think this more than you do.
Yeah.
But after the Penguin, and who knows if the Batman 2 is going to happen. They've given it an acronym, the Batman Epic Crime Saga.
Yeah.
So maybe Mike and I were wrong. But having the Penguin again in Hall H, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe the Batman 2 is going to happen. Again, a lot of you in the comments, let me and Vogel know how incorrect you felt we were. And only time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, when you look at Hall H, it's going to start off on Thursday with the Chris Hemsworth panel for Transformers 1. Then it'll get SpongeBob, Percy Jackson. Then What We Do in the Shadows Farewell Tour kickoff, which I think is probably going to be fun. Then you get the Ultimate Deadpool and Wolverine Celebration of Life there at 6:30. So that's the thing that I'm going to be confused, because I do want to get into the Paramount one on Thursday, but will I sit in there all day just to get to the What We Do in the Shadows and then the Marvel Studios one? And look, there's a massive gap between the What We Do in the Shadows. I said 3:30. Then the Marvel is at 6:30. There's no way What We Do in the Shadows is 3 hours. I would be shocked that it would be 3 hours. So getting into this, I think the 6:30 is this about accommodating people. They're probably going to have people go out and do stuff. So that's going to be those things to focus on there. And you mentioned in Friday starts with The Boys, goes into Rings of Power, then a Doctor Who panel, which I think is great. Then Walking Dead. Then you've got Collider's director on directing, which is kind of, and then the Alien Romulus at 5:15 p.m. That's going to be so for me, I'd want to go in for the first 3 panels, but then want to go away and come back for Alien Romulus. And I don't know that I can. That's the thing that's so crazy about Hall H. You just never know. But I like the lineup they have in there. And as you said, on Saturday, Superman and Lois starts out things. And that's, of course, our friend Jonathan Gabay, who's a producer on that. Then you've got the Berserker, the Immortal Saga, which I don't know what that is. And then Star Trek Universe.
Isn't that the Keanu Reeves?
Oh, the Keanu Reeves one. Yes.
Yeah.
Good call. Then you've got the standard middle of the day panel in Hall H on a Saturday, Entertainment Weekly's Bold School. Then you have Penguin. Then you have the Marvel panel from 6. And you say it's 6 to 7. You're right, because the panel with Kevin Smith starts at 7:30. So I imagine they want to get people out and get people in that half hour between 7 and 7:30. But it could be possible that they go till 7:30 and just deal with the people moving in and out for Kevin Smith and his panel. I don't know. It could be fascinating to see. But looking at Hall H, Hall H is, I think there's some good stuff in Hall H, but it's not as stacked as we've seen in other years, Shannon, I would say.
Yeah, and that's why I think on Friday, I think the possibility of getting in just to see Alien Romulus, I think it's there. Will probably have to wait in that line outside for a little bit. But also what will happen a lot of times is you'll be in line for a panel.
Yeah.
They will let a certain amount of people in. The line will stop.
Yeah.
And then at that point, a lot of people kind of throw in the towel.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we're not getting in. And then, because again, it's such a big space that it takes time to get all those people seated. And then they will go through and they will count seats to see how many people they can let in. Like this has happened many times. Typically with Marvel, every seat is filled.
Right.
And the people that have managed to get in non-traditional ways are trying to kind of run to the bathroom, look like you're looking for people, like try to find a way to see as much as you can without actually having a seat. Right. But yeah, it is a different year. Like in the past, we would see Sony Pictures would come, Warner Brothers would come. Like there would be a set amount of time that this studio is going to show off these amount of projects. And that's kind of not what they're doing as much, with the exception of Marvel. It seems like a lot of projects, like, all right, here's the Boys panel, here's the Rings of Power panel, here's the Penguin panel. So that is a little bit of a change. But when we were kind of living in the high times of Comic-Con, they brought a lot of movies, and those movies didn't necessarily see the needle move from their presence at Comic-Con. And sometimes that's because the movie wasn't great. But to get all your talent there, it can be costly. So I think studios are looking at things a little closer, being like, what do we want to show off? Transformers 1 having a panel makes total sense.
Well, there'll be 2 panels for X-Men 97 on Sunday. That's kind of surprising to me, Shannon. On a Sunday, I thought X-Men 97 would own territory on a Saturday or on a Friday, but maybe they feel like, well, we want to have the big Marvel announcement for live action stuff on Saturday, and then of course the Deadpool and Wolverine panel. Then we'll deal with animation stuff on Sunday. What do you think about them having 2 panels on Sunday?
Well, I'm curious what the panels exactly are. Whether or not this is like, hey, here are some of our artists, here's some of our previs people that we could have. Typically the big ones are the ones where you bring the cast out. You bring the cast, you bring the director. Like I would be curious if one of these panels is bringing out the voice cast.
Maybe.
But sometimes with the more technical stuff, they don't always get the numbers that, again, something in Ballroom 20 with a fancy movie star is going to get.
There's an X-Men fandom panel that's at 1:00 on Sunday. 1:00 on Sunday, goodness. It features Cal Dodd, Lenore Zann, Allison Seeley Smith, Holy Chow, JP Carly X, shout out, Isaac Robinson Smith, and other actors from the cast. Moderated by Chandler Poley and Chris Riley of X Reads podcast, but no other people involved from the production that I see. So I can't imagine.
Well, if it's a fan panel, that kind of makes sense.
That the website fandom. Interesting. And then there's World of X-Men at 11:45, which is the composer Ron Wasserman, Len Yulee, who's a writer, Brooks Wachtel is also a writer, and Jake Castorena, who wrote on X-Men 97, discussed the behind-the-scenes experience of writing for X-Men movies, because Brooks wrote for Dark Phoenix and Len Yulee wrote an episode of Nightcrawler. So, wrote Nightcrawler in the comics. So interesting stuff there. But I was really surprised to see it being on a Sunday. I just thought for sure that would own a little more territory with how big it was.
I think if Marvel had decided to do, like a couple of years ago when they did that Marvel television panel that was showing off What If, it was showing off the upcoming Spider-Man series, they showed off X-Men 97. I think when Marvel is actually the one putting it on, they tend to get those bigger venues. They tend to get something a little splashier. Right. Whereas it sounds like Marvel doesn't actually have anything official to do with this. It's the individual artists that are showing up.
That are being part of it. Anything else that you expect to see? I mean, there's going to be a lot of people there you get autographs with. There's going to be a lot of people there, obviously actors and stars or whatever. But is there anything big that you expect other than those big panels we already spoke about?
I mean, right now, I'm just hoping I make it down in time Thursday night. The main thing I want to see is the lights of the San Diego airport, where I can drop off my rental car and then hop in an Uber to take to our hotel.
Oh, are you flying in? Are you not taking the train? You're flying in?
No, I rented a car.
Okay.
Because driving down, as soon as I wrap at the unnamed studio where I'm working tomorrow, as soon as I wrap, I'm hopping in that car and driving south. I was hoping that my call time was going to be on the earlier side. I did not get that wish, did not get granted. So depending on what time I finish, I could be getting there at 8 p.m. I could be getting there at 2 a.m. Like, we'll see.
All right. Maybe someone's in the bed already, but who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some Star Trek announcements. I want to see what the panel's got to say. A lot of rumors. I mean, Chris Pine came out recently and talked about how he would like to see a more stripped down Star Trek financially. So are they going to make announcements about the movie? Are they going to make announcements about Strange New Worlds? Are they going to make announcements about other projects coming down the line? Because as we see with Paramount changing hands now, with Skydance Entertainment owning them now, is there going to be a reaffirmation of what they're going to be going forward and doing with Star Trek, a recommitment to Star Trek and to putting it on Paramount Plus? So I'm going to be curious to see what comes out of that as well. And what else? Oh, and the Lord of the Rings stuff. I want to see what they're going to do with that season 2. I'm slowly rewatching season 1 of Rings of Power. So I'm going to be curious to see what season 2 is like. And there's no Star Wars. It seems like there'll be Star Wars panels, Shannon, but there probably won't be any big announcement because the D23 Expo is just a few weeks from now. So yeah,
that would be my guess, is that they're going to save anything for Skeleton Crew for their own convention. There is a Star Trek panel on Saturday, I think.
That's
right.
That's why I want to make myself stay for that one. Stay through the whole day. Maybe we'll do it together. I don't know. It depends on our endurance. We're old men now, man. I don't know if we can sit in that chair through every panel, but we'll see.
I mean, we couldn't do it then. I mean, we were zombies by the end of Saturday.
We were hopping, but we were still zombies by the end. But at least none of us got stabbed by a pencil. That's a good thing. All right. Any final words here as we wrap up, brother man, for Comic-Con or anything else we talked about as we go?
I mean, again, if you see us hanging around Comic-Con, come up and say hi. And hopefully, like if you are able to attend, have a safe trip, have a safe travel to San Diego. Yeah. And it's gonna get crowded, it's gonna get chaotic. Be patient. Yes. Everyone's there for the same thing. Everyone wants to have a good time. Be there for your brothers and your sisters in geekdom and just have a wonderful time.
Please try to shower and please try to
okay.
I'm just saying, maybe even wear your masks because the numbers are going up, and you will not find me without my mask at Comic-Con in an inside area. So just letting you all know. So you may not recognize me, but I will be there. But I will be wearing a mask for majority of the time that I'm there for sure. All right, well there you go. That's our episode here, special episode of the Geek Buddies. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel and taunt him a little bit because he's in San Diego right now with Mike Kalinowski, you can follow him @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, as always, it is @TheRocha
Thank you. And of course, you can always subscribe to us on our podcast feed, wherever you download podcasts. Just look up The Geek Buddies. Subscribe to them, leave us ratings, leave us reviews there. And if anything we talked about, you want to leave comments on down below, feel free to do that as well. Subscribe to the channel, hit a like on this channel, share it on your social media. And if you're going to Comic-Con, have an absolute blast and enjoy yourself. And hopefully it is a great experience. And for those of you going for the first time, we hope you have a wonderful time because Shannon and I certainly remember our first time and what we experienced there. So it's a memory that you never forget. So, all right, take care of yourselves. Be well. Shout out to MK2, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of The
Geek, because he's in San Diego. Buddies!